And people online, just say your name so we can make sure everybody's here.
Yeah, I can go through the list here. So Rita
Rita.
Baker.
Here.
All right. Christopher Bowker. I don't see him and I don't know if he's in person. All right. Christina Brown.
Here.
Councillor Brike.
Here.
Richard Craven. No. Anthony Fields.
I'm here.
William Gifford.
Here.
Councillor Golby.
Here.
Renee Harbour.
Here.
Brian Johnson. I see you. I see that nod. Preston Korst.
Here.
Mayor McGriff.
Present.
Mayor Milch.
There's a
Here on Zoom.
All right,
With
I see
no
you.
camera.
No worries. Catherine Miller.
Here.
Michael Morrow.
Here.
And Neil Schulman.
Here.
All right, we have a quorum.
Michael, do you know you're an orange blob?
Yes. Sorry about that.
Orange looks good on you.
The old
It happens
post-it
to the
note
best
on the
of us.
camera trick.
Only firing that. Okay, so we have a quorum, so let's go to director updates.
All right. Good evening, everybody. It's great to see some of you in person. I just had a couple things and one thing that I need to follow up on. So as you know, we have state issued Clean Water Act permits for all of our facilities that govern the quality of the effluent, amongst other things. We're negotiating our permit for our Tri-City facility. There's a process called applicant review, where the state DEQ develops a permit. They send it to us for a couple of weeks. We make comments, we meet with them. They either incorporate or don't incorporate our comments. And then it goes out for a 35-day public notice. And I just want to let folks know that it is out right now for a 35-day public notice. So we will be getting a new Clean Water Act permit for our Tri-City facility. I will say Ron has really led that charge along with some consultants that we've had. We think we got good outcomes. For the most part, it's not always, I mean, it's a ratchet and it always gets tighter and tighter. That's the way the Clean Water Act is designed. And that's what we're experiencing. But as far as the comments that we made, they accepted or made all of the changes that we requested.
So when you say, I think you mean the screws are tightening, it's getting tighter because a ratchet just does this.
Yeah, you're right.
It doesn't make anything tighter, it just cuts stuff, so,
One direction.
yeah.
Yeah.
So where would the public be able to locate these notices?
Ron?
Are they published in the
They
paper
are,
record or?
It's on the DEQ website.
yeah, they're not published in the paper of record. They're on the DEQ website and sent out to whatever the email listservs that they have.
Okay,
If someone is interested, I can certainly send a link out to the advisory committee and make it easy. I can do that right now.
I just think it's good to have in the record that where it is in case some random wonderful person out there is tuning in and wants to know.
Yep. Okay, and we'll get a link sent out.
Yes.
On a not so great note, so our Three Creeks restoration area project that we've been working on for a while now. We were pleasantly surprised about 6 months ago when, after about 18 months, the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation, NIPWF, sent us a letter saying, hey, your grant application was accepted, so you get $3 million. That was on top of the $3+ million we have budgeted, and Metro Nature in the Neighborhood grant in the neighborhood of $600,000. So we were a ways down in towards the design of the project, and we're like, well, we need to renegotiate. We need to kind of relook at the scope of the project since we have all this more money. And honestly, we were thinking, I don't know if it would be wise to spend all of this money, because it would be so you could do too much restoration. You want to do enough, but not overdo it. Anyway, we were informed, I think, last week. And then we went back to NIPWF and said, okay, well, here's the things that were in our original application. Here's the things that we want you to pay for, and they said, never mind, we're done.
What?
Yeah, it was shocking.
Never mind, we're not gonna do it?
We're not gonna get. And my theory, because they would have had to, so they had got the $3 million that they were trying to give away. If they wanted to work with us, they would have had to actually work with us and say, okay, well, we're gonna take $1 million of these dollars and apply it this way on that project, and that meets our criteria. That would require more work for them, because then they've got $2 million that they need to spend somewhere else, and anyway, I think it was frankly, staff person being lazy and saying, well, we can throw this $3 million at somewhere else.
Where they don't have to do anything?
Where they don't have to do as much work. But Ron, do you have any?
That's sad.
Yeah,
Yeah, the projects had just changed significantly and we did, like Greg said, we submitted a proposal to them to say, this is what we think we can spend it on, which is some water quality improvements and some other habitat improvements. But we did say there's a lot of cultural resources and wetland resources on the site, a lot of heritage trees, and we didn't want to be too invasive. And yeah, they generally said that with the new scope that we submitted to them, it didn't meet the criteria of their grant program. I'll say that these are large projects that they fund nationwide. I think our offer from them was on a list of 25 to 30 projects in the entire country, and the only one of 2 in Oregon. And so I think it got small enough and outside of their scope where they just said it's kind of an on or off. It wasn't, well, instead of 3 point something million, we'll give you 500,000. That just didn't work for them. So they withdrew the offer.
Well, wasn't there a way that you could have said projects that we originally submitted, just deal with that and then use other money for other stuff?
There was, and we, one of the reasons we got an offer was because we had a significant investment of our own and a match. So we tried to switch what we were going to spend our match money on to be more in line with what the original grant proposal was. But that, and then spend the grant money on that, spend our match money on these other things. But they said the other things were outside of scope.
And
So-
Neil has his hand raised.
For our match fund as well.
Yeah, I just wanted to just note, I think Greg and Ron are being relatively tactful. I think from my understanding of working with Gail on this, the communication around this by the funder was pretty awful. I've never seen a grant sit on a funder's desk for nearly 2 years and then them come back. And of course, the design has changed and progressed during that time. And then it sounded to me like they were very unclear when Wes went back to them and said, well, hey, here's how we'd like to move forward, given all the time that's passed and all the progress on the design that's happened during that time. They didn't really make it clear what criteria it had to meet, or if it was going to be rescored in the same way. So I share everybody's frustration. I think Wes staff did a great job of moving it forward and leveraging these funds. So you have my sympathy, and I just wanted to give voice to, it was a pretty strange process from all the grant processes I've seen over my career.
yeah, thanks, Neil. It was frustrating, and I do think that we did everything we could to try to work with them. I think it's relatively small fish in a big pond, and they're going to move on.
That's too bad. Anything else?
One other thing, but I don't have the details. We'll have to send it out after. There's an event, a summit coming up. Melissa, do you have that?
Yeah.
So for those of you who haven't experienced or don't know, we offer, when there's like a local conference or summit related to the work that we do, it's in our bylaws that we can have advisory committee members attend that on Wes's dime. So we like to keep you folks informed of that type of thing that's happening in the region in case folks are interested in going.
I have it up if you want me to share
Yes.
what it is. So it's you have the opportunity to attend this virtually. It's called the 2024 Science to Policy Summit, and it is Wednesday, May 15th, and it is from 10 a.m. to 3. And the theme is conservation as climate mitigation, using carbon programs to protect and restore ecosystems. Through this experience, you will learn about and discuss how carbon programs can promote habitat protection and restoration.
And it's put on by the Lower Columbia Estuary Partnership. They do the Science for Policy Summit every year. I've gone in the past. It's a lot of fun. And when we were thinking about who might go from our own staff, I thought it might be a good opportunity for advisory committee members if they're interested. So
Is this virtual then?
it's
There's an in-person option.
in person and virtual.
Where's the in-person?
It's up in Washington.
Well, that's not that far. Kansas is close.
One of their incentives to attend in person is that you can go canoeing.
It's like, it's gotta be Camas area.
We'll send out the full detail.
I have an email that we're ready to send. I'm gonna send it up to me.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you can just get back to us if you're interested. We'll register folks. If you want to go and report back what it was like.
The one day,
Thoughts.
Clackamas Lodge.
it's just the one day.
Yeah, it's just a
In
one day, yeah, it's at Lacamas Lake, at the Lacamas Lake Lodge in Camas.
Yeah, I'll remember that. Okay, cool. Well, if anybody's interested in taking advantage of that, get back to them. They're available that day, May 15th.
I'm gonna tease it, but Alexa did all the work, so we're gonna make you
He's
stick
going.
around till the end of the meeting to find out, but we do have a name for it.
Oh.
Don't want you to lose any sleep over it.
And that concludes my updates.
All
Oh, for those of you who maybe came in, Greg DiLoretto was at spring training and was flying back today. He thought he could get an earlier flight, but was unable to. So Mayor McGriff kindly is stepping in.
right. Is he there trying out for a team?
I don't know, maybe he could fall in college. I don't, it's something he does every year.
Then we'll have to ask him which major league team he's been interested in following there in Eric, if that's where he is in Arizona, because I guess that's where they are.
Yeah.
So, all right. Any further questions for Greg? Anybody online? No, we're all good. All right, let's move on to the next one, which we have the, does everybody have a chance to look at the January meeting minutes? And if there's no objection, we can just approve them by consensus. Any questions about the meeting minutes? Do we have a consensus to just approve them? Everybody's saying yes? I think we got yes, yes. Okay. All right. Do we have any public comment for tonight? Nope.
Don't, nope.
Oh, we're just whipping through this then. And you came in late. Everybody else introduce themselves.
Oh, Christopher Bowker, from Gladstone.
Yes, all right. Everybody hear that?
Yep. Hi, Christopher.
We were teasing,
Yeah,
right?
it was banned.
I know, it was backed up when I came through at about 2. I don't know what was going on, but anyway. All right, so Greg, was it told? So you have a state of the district.
All right, so I don't know who's gonna pull this up. Was that you,
I'll pull
Chris?
it up. Mhm.
Okay, so, and this, please, this is not a presentation necessarily to you. It's us, me showing you the presentation. This is my, essentially the annual report from the state of the district that I go around to the different cities, and various groups and on an annual basis and talk about what we've been up to. So, and a lot of this, you know, the city councilors and that are on the advisory committee obviously know all of this and more. But what I'd like from you tonight, and whether you're an elected official or anybody, this is kind of our template. So, you know, and we're going to be doing a little bit different work in Happy Valley than we are in Oregon City, right? Typically before, when we schedule these meetings, I bring in the city manager and say, okay, what's interesting to your council or commission? And try to tailor these for each city. So for tonight, I just want you guys to understand the content. We'll talk a little bit about maybe my philosophy or why I want to talk about certain things or why I think it's important. But also if there are things either in the content or that you think for your particular city would be of interest, please feel free to interrupt at any time and let me know. Because we're just trying to say, okay, here's the rough draft of what we're doing. And if you have ideas for improvements or tailoring to your particular community, let me know.
What's the audience of this?
Well, it's city councils. Primarily,
Okay.
yeah. I'm trying to think of who else.
Have you gone to Johnson City?
Yeah.
Okay.
And again, you know, when I go to Johnson City, they typically have a crowd in the room that don't know Wes. And so, that's why I like to start with this, the beginning. Begin at the beginning. So it will seem rudimentary to you, but, you're kind of not the target. Sorry. All right, go ahead. Next slide.
Yeah, Chris to be navigating.
So our updated vision and mission, I think we're really, really proud of that. A lot of work actually went into this along with our strategic plan. So our vision to be a collaborative partner in building a resilient clean water future where all people benefit and rivers thrive.
No view.
I won't read the mission, but again, I just want people to be grounded, understand what we're grounded in and what our aspiration is as we serve their community. And then the mission is really the nuts and bolts. That's what we do for the community. Next slide. And then our various focus areas. We want people to know that fiscal responsibility is something that we take seriously. Water resource recovery, healthy waterways, our people. All right, next slide. And again, a lot of people, the breadth and the complexity of who Wes serves and how we serve them is pretty complicated. And so we came up with this more kind of a abstract.
Greg, excuse me, can we have Chris take the
Oh, yeah.
side panel down?
She's trying.
She's
I don't-
trying.
I can't
And
control
you just
that.
bar- A little one line bar and that takes it off.
Yeah, there you go. Minimize.
Up at the top.
I think it's somebody, so I don't see that on my end. I think it's on in the room.
There it is.
You got it.
Thanks, Rob.
Thank you, Ron.
Perfect.
Again, we've got, well, what a guy.
He's here all night.
We've got somebody up on the mountain there and out in Boring and our Fisher Forest Park. And the idea that we do different things in different areas. And the other thing I like to talk about is the breadth of the technology. I've never seen an organization that has literally from a large on-site septic system, a drain field, to a lagoon, to a rotating biological contactor up on the mountain, traditional activated sludge, and the MBR. I mean, that is the span of treatment technology. And I always think it's good for people to understand that complexity. Next slide. And then, well, you can go back.
Oh. Sorry.
And again, who we serve, just statistics really, and not fun facts, but definitely facts. Next slide. Again, more on that. Next slide. And then I'll be talking about our strategic plan, and we really try to align this with the thing called effective utility management. And that's a national, and in some cases, international framework that was developed by the Water Environment Federation and the National Association of Clean Water Agencies and a lot of smart people, kind of a roadmap for really successful utilities. And so when we did our strategic plan, we wanted to make sure that we were grounded in those areas. And so when you look through our strategic plan, you'll see a heavy emphasis on those things. And again, the purpose of this, I want people to know that we're thinking strategically, that we're planning strategically, and it is grounded in really good practice. And science. And science, yes. Next slide. And then we always want to talk about rates and how a dollar gets spent. And that's, so we have the pie chart on the right-hand side. But I think people are all, another point of this, I always try to include a forecast because I want people to know that we're always thinking ahead. And what that shows is that the combination of our strategic plan, our master plans for our collection systems, our financial long-range planning, we know what we need to build, we know when we need to build it, and we know how we're going to pay for it. And that's why rates look the way that they do. Incremental, predictable increases, not rate shock, but
I have a suggestion. You probably don't need the why after the fiscal year, ending on June 30th.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
That's on both of those charts.
oh, yeah, we can take
It's a little
that.
misleading.
You can fix that.
Aaron, is that possible?
Yeah.
Cool.
I wish I had my laptop.
And then, of course, our surface water rate forecast too. And the one thing that I think always benefits us is when we show a comparison slide from us and our peers, whether it's our surface water rates, which are well below virtually anybody in the region, or our monthly rates, and especially the forecasts of our monthly rates, because we compare very favorably. And I like to say on this that we feel very, I wouldn't say we're lucky because we put a lot of work into it, but we're in a fortunate situation. The fact that we have been able to do all that planning, and we have really bright people in there. A lot of our, throughout our organization, we've got support from this body, the board, and we have a roadmap, a long-term roadmap for the future to continue to invest in this infrastructure. Again, that's just something I want people to know about Wes. Next slide. And then we always want to talk about our leaders and how it works. Us being a component unit of the county, and public utility, and the great work that and the breadth of experience on our advisory committee, and how that feeds up to good decision making at the county commissioner level, because they do well, I can't think of a single time since this body was formed, since the latest iteration, that the board has not taken a recommendation, whether it's budget or otherwise capital improvement plan. So they do have a lot of faith in this group. All right, next.
That's not just faith. I think that's been proven.
Yeah. Trust. Yeah.
Should be some faith.
And then, we just want to make sure that people understand the kind of the scale that we work at. This is, what's the one on the left is Bolton Pump Station, rebuild that we did. And then the other one is River Street down there in Westland. A lot of other, again, city councilors and things like that, kind of don't understand this. They've not been to our facilities a lot of times, and they kind of don't understand the scale. But we want people to know that we're investing and building big stuff every day. Next. And again, we'll talk about the Clackamas Area Interceptor. This will be a good one for, and we've talked about this, I think, with Happy Valley before, but understanding the amount of work that we're doing to accommodate the growth that is occurring in Happy Valley, and upgrading our capacity in our collection system. Next. Of course, we got to talk about the Outfall project. We had a lot of fun at the groundbreaking. You can see the golden shovels, and we got some great press. Folks read about it.
And decent weather.
Yes.
Yeah.
Until it was.
Yeah, until it was. Yeah.
It can run like crazy, get out of there.
Next. And again, just focusing, we're here 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, serving the community proudly. Next slide. And then, here's what people see when you see our trucks out on the street, or our folks maintaining that type of infrastructure. That's what we do. That's what you see out on the community. Next. I'll again talk about our inflow and infiltration reduction program. We've been through that 100 times, but again, for fresh eyes, this has been a wildly successful program. Oregon City in particular, Westland's coming on board, and I'm sure Milwaukee will as well. I know they're interested in it now. So
When do we expect an ROI on?
Well, we haven't looked. We really took a big chunk, right? We said it's a 20-year look ahead, based on what flows we would expect, and an engineering estimate of what weather capacity we would need to build if we didn't do this work and meet the goals associated with that work. And that was $100 million over 20 years savings.
So we're expecting that, but are we gonna have to wait 20 years before we have a look back?
Well, no, all of the projects need to demonstrate, have a way of measuring their effectiveness. So it's pre-monitoring and post-monitoring. So we know where we're at, where we want to be on the line for our wet weather flows moving forward. So we're going to be tracking that on, annual basis, and see, and we call this a pilot program to start with, because it is a carrot, and we want to make sure that it works, and we want to make sure that we are actually reducing that, because if we're not, we may have to change course, right? Aaron, is there a better way to?
Well, Jeff, I was thinking Jeff, he's on the line, he might
Oh, yeah.
have.
Jeff, do you have any thoughts on that?
No, so every other refreshing our hydraulic model with clean data to evaluate these basins that we've targeted. So it's not something where you do a project and see significant changes, because it might move around the network a little bit, move around that basin a little bit. And so it is something that we'll be monitoring on a biannual or every other year. Essentially, we're updating our hydraulic model based on new flow information.
Okay.
All right, next slide. Always want to talk about our Three Creeks project and our just overall commitment to watershed health. A lot of people think of Wes as just doing sewer, and we're a lot more than that. Next slide. And then again, our watershed health commitments and partners. And then the final, go into the next slide. And you guys know all about this. This is our solid partnership, which I think is a good example of us connecting with the community, and doing work that reflects their values. And leveraging the good work that's happening out in the community and the resources that are out there. I think we've done a really good job of finding and I don't say exploiting, that doesn't sound quite right, but taking advantage of the folks that are doing good work out in the community.
I think it also greatly raises the profile of the organization in the community's eyes when they see us actually doing things.
Right. Yeah, I mean, we typically get press at our opening event for the summer waterways cleanup, and at our closing event, and that puts eyeballs on us and builds the sense that we're doing good for the community, for people that otherwise wouldn't know who we are or what we're up to. All right, last slide. This is the quote, and that's it. So I guess the questions for you is, does that kind of cover it? Is there something that we talk about or that you think about that you think I should be talking more about? Or is there things in your community that you think that we should emphasize? And I know I'm putting you on the spot, and we will be talking to you and
Yeah, I guess I would say if you want to have a slide in the mix about partnerships, you could maybe focus on one thing that might be happening in each of the communities, just for that particular presentation, something you could take in and out. That would be the only thing I would suggest if you want to try to, hone in on something. So, Oregon City, obviously you're going to focus in on the I&I, but,
and
maybe with West Lynn, you were going to say, we're partnering with you on the water line, the water pipe across the bridge, because that's a big deal.
Yeah.
So I think there might be you could do something like that.
And the asphalt project.
Yeah, and we're partnering with the city on like 4 different things right
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
One's a stormwater pipe.
Yeah, so you could list them, and, if there's something going on in Johnson's, I mean, there's obviously something either in the past year that you could pull out for each jurisdiction to make it a little more personal. That would be the only thing. That's all I would suggest.
Yeah, and I'm thinking, Brian, for Johnson City, you folks probably wanted an update on where we're at on the Upper Kellogg.
Yeah.
Projects,
Yeah, where that's at.
Yep.
Okay.
All right, awesome.
By the way, Brian, we just got approval for the final design and permitting, and we're expecting to break ground in summer 2025.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and have to do it during the in-water work window. We're not ready for this summer, so it'll have to be.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you.
Okay.
And if something comes to you, after this meeting, shoot me an email. Want to make sure these things are meaningful for councils and commissions.
Okay, so even though we started a little late, we are basically on track. We're actually 3 minutes early for the next item, which is financial strategy review and budget plan.
Thank you, Jennifer. Thanks, everyone. I'm excited tonight to be sharing an overview of Wes's financial strategy and an update on where we are in the budget planning process. And this actually dovetails really nicely with the annual plan update that Greg just shared, because you saw the rate forecast in there. He shared elements of our strategic plan, and I'll be touching on those aspects too. All right, next slide, please. So we'll start with objectives and strategies that we use in our long-term financial planning, and then dive into budget planning for next fiscal year, where we'll outline the budget process, go over projections for the current fiscal year, share major themes for next fiscal year's budget, and then next steps in the budget process. Next slide, please. So these next 2 slides are going to be a review for a lot of the members of the budget or of the advisory committee, because we did this long-term financial planning work back in 2022. But we felt like it was important to take the string backward for the newer members of our advisory committee, and because this plays such a key role in the development of the budgets. Wes maintains a 10-year financial plan that provides a view of Wes's financial position by projecting all operating, capital, and debt service requirements and the resulting utility rates to fund wastewater and surface water operations. That plan is founded on a financial strategy that we developed with this committee's input in 2022 and finalized in March of that year. The key objectives under that strategy are outlined on this slide. So what do those mean in terms of Wes's financial plan? Well, number 1 means in our financial planning, we first fully fund all operating expenses so that we can ensure that we fulfill our mission and deliver essential services to the community of wastewater treatment and watershed protection that are. Number 2 means that we deliver the projects and fund the projects in the capital improvement plan that build the necessary infrastructure to allow new connections to the system. Number 3 means we're cost effective, and we look for cost savings in our budgeting. We maintain strong debt service coverage to maintain access to lower cost financing, as well as just really look for efficiencies and process improvements. Legacy debt refers to the debt that was incurred by Clackamas County Service District number 1 before the West Partnership was formed. And under the terms of that partnership agreement, only Rate Zone 2 ratepayers, which are those rate zone payers in unincorporated Clackamas County and Happy Valley, are responsible for those debt payments. So in the context of the financial plan, number 4 means that we will fully fund the debt payments for legacy debt with Rate Zone 2 revenue resources.
How much longer do we have?
We have the debt through 2036, but we're planning to phase the debt component out by 2031. We refinanced in 2016 to lower the interest rate down to about 2%, which has saved us quite a bit of money.
As long as your strike is broken.
Yeah.
I had a question about number 2.
Yeah.
Just the phrasing of this, ensure sufficient capacity to support, and I would have said growth rather than economic development, because it isn't the economic development that we need to address, it's the impact of that development.
Right. And I would say planned growth, because
Yeah.
we're not talking about just willy-nilly.
Exactly.
Good feedback. Thank you. Right, and then number 5 refers, well, currently Rate Zone 2 ratepayers pay about $10 more per month for the same wastewater treatment service as Rate Zone 1 ratepayers due to a rate differential related to the legacy debt payments. So number 5 refers to phasing out that rate differential over the next several years so that everyone pays the same for wastewater treatment services regardless of where they are in our service area. Next slide, please. So within the context of those financial objectives, we have several more specific strategies aimed at achieving those objectives. And these strategies all have more specific goals and targets that we aim for in our financial planning, but those are targets, and there may be times when we're not able to achieve those. Greg showed you the rate forecast earlier. And based on input from this advisory committee, we're targeting no more than 5% annual increases to wastewater treatment and surface water rates. Those steady and predictable rate increases are good for both the ratepayer and for Wes, as they ensure revenue stability and they prevent rate shock that Greg mentioned earlier. Limiting annual increases in operating maintenance costs encourages sustainable growth and efficient resource allocation. For the last several years, we've been intentionally building up our construction and SDC reserves in anticipation of planned capital investment. And we're planning to allocate those reserves to capital financing and issue debt after that existing resources exhausted in a few years. Maintaining operating reserves to cover 60 days of expenses is a financial management best practice, and it's also a policy that was recommended by this advisory committee. It acts as a financial safety net and ensures that we have the liquidity to meet unforeseen expenses without compromising our operational integrity. Our debt service coverage covenants require that we maintain a ratio of at least 120% of annual debt service. We target higher than that, 140% in our financial planning, to ensure that we have access to lower cost financing, which is savings that we can then pass on to our ratepayers. And utilizing system development charges reduces pressure on rates, and it also allows us to align the receipt of system development charge payments, which come in over time for growth, to the projects that were constructed to support that growth. And then finally, seeking and securing grants and other external funding reduces pressure on rates and lowers costs that would otherwise have to be covered through rate increases. Next slide, please. So Wes's budget is the annual manifestation of that long-term financial planning work, and in alignment with state statutes, it promotes financial transparency, and most importantly, it provides an opportunity for public input and involvement to ensure that our resource allocations are aligned with the community's priorities and goals. So broadly speaking, our budget process is divided into an internal process and a public process. Internally, we kicked off budget development in January by comparing current year performance against the adopted budget and developing projections for where we'll be ending the current fiscal year to have an idea of where we'll be starting next fiscal year with. And we'll be sharing those projections with you in just a moment. We're nearing the end of our internal process and preparing for review by the county administrator coming up. Today marks the official start of our public process with this meeting and the budget committee member appointments, which are, I think, next on the agenda. Right. So to tease up that agenda item, I'll mention that the budget committee involvement typically is 2 meetings in May. It's the advisory committee budget proposal meeting on May 16th, and then it's the formal budget committee meeting later in May. The exact date and time is to be determined. I also wanted to thank the present members of our budget committee that have served the last several years, 4 of which are sitting in this room: Christopher Bowker, William Gifford, Michael Morrow, and Mary McGriff. Roseanne Johnson, I didn't see her present tonight, but thanks.
Committee, because she's
Oh,
not representing the home builders
got it.
anymore.
Okay.
She's doing something else.
Well, thanks to her too. We've received really valuable input from our budget committee and this advisory committee and how to improve our budget communications, and we're really just grateful for your involvement. I'll mention here that Wes is biennial budgeting is an option in Oregon, and we know that that's an option that some of our city partners, including Oregon City and I think West Lynn, take advantage of. So Wes is currently exploring a biennial budget process, as we think that might better align with our long-term approach to financial planning and maybe help us realize some operational efficiencies. So that's something that we'll be discussing more with this committee in the near future. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so table
Will you at some point go into greater detail?
about the biennial. Yes, yeah, definitely. We're early stages right now. Just kind of talking internally about what that might look like. And of course, there's input that we would need from our partners.
Soon, but I was like.
Yeah, no.
From a staff standpoint, we changed to big it's like gave everybody sort of a little bit of breathing room.
Yeah.
With that, I'm
I'm gonna be in touch with you. Your intentions. Awesome. So these next two slides just show our current year revenues against the adopted budget. We started this year with just over $194 million in beginning fund balance, which is about what we were projecting. Last year, we developed the projections for retail sewer charges in February, and we had a higher growth in the latter half of the year. So retail sewer charges are coming in about 2.5% above our projections. This is the second year in a row that we've seen lower system development revenue due to reduced development activity. And this year's single family growth especially is very low. I'm not sure if that's something that the cities are seeing as well, but I would guess. 1/3 of the system development charge revenues that we're projecting, though, surprisingly, are from City of Milwaukee for the majority for large multifamily development. So interest income is kind of one that sticks out on the slide.
Yeah.
We can probably remember back in 2022, interest rates were near zero. Over the past 2 years, in an effort to curb inflation, the Federal Reserve has raised interest rates 11 times to where they are right now, which is 5.33%. And we've been taking advantage of that increase in rates and shifting our cash positions over to higher earning investments. And as a result, we're looking at potentially $6.5 billion in interest income this year. For comparison, 2 years ago, our interest income was $600,000. So that's been a good increase in revenue that's helping us to offset the inflation that we saw for the past 2 years that are driving capital costs up and some of the other costs.
Especially, you know, going out and getting new.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's
right.
right. Yeah,
The last that we had was 0.084.
yeah, exactly.
Good old days.
Yes.
When you talk to the cities, talk about this kind of stuff,
Not in that level of detail.
maybe,
It's a heck of a story, but yeah.
yeah. I don't know.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, I think Aaron can coach me up well enough.
Next slide, please. And on the expense side, our operating budget, which consists of labor and other materials and services, is coming in at about a combined 7% reduction from the budget. We've been seeing average vacancy rate this year of about 10 positions. We're down from 15 last year, but still pretty high rates. And that's accounting for that variance in less labor. And all other materials and services, actual spending is lower than the budget due to lower spending on professional services such as engineering, environmental services, as well as reduced spending on contracted repairs and maintenance as we've shifted more over to renewal and replacement under our asset management budget in the capital. The capital outlay is going to come in at about 19% below budget. That represents a significant increase in spending and a much closer percentage of the budget that we've been spending than the last couple of years. There's 3 projects that are accounting for that variance. We're seeing lower spending on the regional INI cost share program just because of the timing of those projects and when the cities are doing that work, as well as lower spending on the Tri-City primary clarifier rehabilitation and the Willamette Interceptor Capacity Improvements Project, which we're partnering with ODOT on, and we're relying on ODOT to bill us for that work, and that hasn't happened yet. So we'll be ending this fiscal year in a really strong financial position with over $173 million in ending fund balance and reserves. As mentioned earlier, we'll be directing most of that towards capital planning, capital projects in the next couple of years. All right, and the next slide, please. So while we might only be in an active budgeting phase for 6 months out of each year, the inputs that we use in developing the budget are the result of ongoing planning work that we rely on this committee for input on. So much so that when you finally see the 24-25 proposed budget, it might feel a lot like watching a movie after you've already read the book. But that's a good thing in government budgeting. We don't like surprises. Predictability is good. So I think, as most of you probably know, capital spending is the largest element in Wes's budget. And so we're anticipating higher spending on that as we implement the adopted CIP. As Greg touched on, Wes completed significant strategic planning effort last year, and we'll be budgeting resources to achieve the specific actions that are in those plans. In terms of financial policies impact on the budget, that guides our management of debt and investments, as well as revenue management. It also specifies compliance with statutory requirements and best practices. And next slide, please. And then we went over the long-term financial plan in detail, but as you can see here, it has a very strong relationship to budget. And the last major input is the economic output, which are all those variables that are outside of Wes's control that we nevertheless have to plan for. And that includes things like inflation rates, increases in energy costs, supply chain issues, population growth, and other elements like that. Next slide, please. So what does the economic outlook appear like currently? Well, we are seeing a reduction in inflation as evidenced by the Engineering News Construction Cost Index, which came in last year at an average of 2.7% compared to 7.2% in 2022. I think most of us are familiar with the increases in electricity rates that Portland General Electric implemented effective January 1st. For Wes's accounts, we're seeing about a 15% increase there. The collective bargaining agreement that Wes has specifies a 4.5% cost of living adjustment for county personnel, coupled with expected increases in health insurance. We're looking at about a 6% increase in labor costs next year. County allocated costs provide for the central and internal services that Wes contracts with the county with for human resources, technology services, and other services of that ilk. And we're expecting a 14% increase there. We completed an updated population growth projection study with FCS Group in late 2023, which predicted an average annual growth rate of 1% across Wes's service area. So we're using that projection in our budget.
Is that population growth?
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly. And it's broken down on the slide by rate zone and city there. For those of you that are interested, we're using the median growth projection from that study and keeping with kind of conservative revenue estimates. And then we already, yeah.
Do we have some sort of a formula determining the ratio of population increase versus usage of demand on our systems? That is to say, not every added body equals the same amount of usage.
Yeah, so the 1% growth correlates really closely to the increase in service quantity because more than 90% of Wes's customers are residential and build on a fixed rate basis. So each house is one equivalent to one unit or one service unit. But it's true, we do have fluctuations in commercial account consumption activity from year to year. And that's in these numbers too, but it has such a lesser impact compared to the residential growth that it's not really something that we've broken out separately. But I think it is worth discussing, and we'll probably include something in the budget that the changes in commercial account consumption over the past few years. It's been really interesting because I went down dramatically at the inception of the COVID-19 pandemic and then recovered slowly. And then this year we're quite a bit higher so far based on consumption numbers from calendar year 2023.
And Aaron, Michael Mulch has his hand raised.
Thank you.
You can't see them because we minimized it. Go ahead, Michael.
You mentioned under labor costs, the projected increases in health insurance. Are Wes employees covered under the public employee retirement system for the state of Oregon?
Yes, they are.
So that's one of those things that varies from year to year and it's very hard to predict.
Yes, it is. Yeah. What we've seen over the last 2 years with respect to PERS is our costs have gone down slightly because as tier 1 members retire, the newer members are coming on at a lower cost for those and usually lower salaries as well. And PERS is picking up a lower percentage of those. So we've actually seen those costs remain steady or slightly decreased over the past few years due to the increase in retirements.
Okay, thank you.
I got a question too. Maybe this is
Go right ahead.
a dumb question, but how can you have a 6% increase in labor if you're paying them 4.5 and there's 5% increase in health insurance? Wouldn't that be
No, that's a
10%?
good question. So we aren't showing all the components of labor there. There are step increases too for employees that aren't at the top of their pay grades. So those are 3.5% per year, and employees that qualify, we automatically assume that they would get those increases. And then the health insurance increases range depending on the plan that the employee selected. So the lower cost plans, which I think are Kaiser, are around a 5% increase, and the higher cost plans are Providence, and those are around 11%. So the mix, there's a lot of underlying variables that wind up at a 6% overall labor increase.
But you didn't. Sorry.
No,
So
no.
if it costs the county $2,000 per employee for health insurance.
Yeah.
It would be a 6, a 5 or an 11% increase, but just on that amount.
But
Not
then you're
salary.
also paying them salary increase.
Right.
And then maybe PERS. So
It's
How does
the
that-
giant, it's the giant payroll spreadsheet,
It
right?
is,
That you
yeah.
got every employee, because some are single, some are family coverage, so everybody's got a different wage, and then I assume that the county doesn't pay 100% of the premium, right?
That's
So the county pays a portion of the premium, so
Okay.
the whole increase in the premium doesn't go to the budget because the employees are paying part of it.
Yes, thank you.
Well said. Well said.
Good answer. I appreciate it.
Tells you the former CFO.
And then we already touched on interest rates earlier, but the chart in the lower left of this slide shows those interest rate fluctuations over the last 4.5 years in terms of the local government investment pool. And I don't know, I think it effectively illustrates how volatile those have been over the last couple of years.
Question. A couple slides ago, you had, proceeds or funds from SRF.
Yes.
When the interest is high like this, I assume they must suppress interest, the interest rate, isn't that the point of those programs? How does that work?
Yeah, so the SRF loan that we have is for Three Creeks, and the loan agreement is from 2019. So the interest rate that was negotiated under was, I think, for 2.something%, but once we complete the project, there'll be an amendment to the loan, and they'll likely lower that interest rate down to 1%. That's what happened on the Tri-City Solar Planning loan. We had a 2.14% interest rate, and after the completion of the project, because of the Three Creeks loan, actually, it's a sponsorship option loan. They lowered the interest rate to 1%. So yes, those programs are super competitive. There's also still principal forgiveness being offered by the SRF program. So that's part of that external funding that we're trying to leverage. But really good question. I would not want to be going out for debt right now, which we were chatting about a little bit earlier because interest rates are so high for bonds. But we're in a good position because we have strong cash reserves. Won't need to. Hopefully interest rates will come back down by the time we need to issue. Yeah. Okay. All right, next slide, please. So major themes in this upcoming budget include increased capital spending to implement the adopted CIP, working to offset the operating cost increases that we're seeing to realize the targets in our long-range planning, and then implementing our strategic plans. And the implementation of our strategic plans impacts the budget in a lot of different ways. The three primary ways are we have measures that relate directly to accuracy in budgeting, as well as maintaining service affordability. We have measures that are going to require additional resources to accomplish in terms of staff time or expenses. And then we also have measures that are going to reduce costs through reducing energy consumption, strategic procurements, or external funding. Next slide, please. So this slide is in your packet for your reading pleasure, but it just lists a lot of the objectives that are linked to the budget to show how those influence our decision-making during budgeting. I'm super excited about the measures in our plan that the programs I work with are going to be implementing, which includes an updated low-income discount program. That's really exciting work to me. We have new monthly metrics. We have new metrics for assessing affordability based on the EPA's updated guidance that I'm excited to roll out. So I think I'm not alone on the management team and our excitement about these plans, and we're going to be talking a lot more about this and sharing progress as we go along. Next slide, please. Cool. And then next steps. So we're just in the final stages of our internal review. We'll be presenting to the county administrator on April 1st. And once we get his approval to move forward, we'll transition fully to the public input process, where we'll solicit input from this advisory committee, our budget committee, our ratepayers, and citizens. on the proposed budget. And then we're looking forward to your input in this process at the upcoming May 16th West Advisory Committee Budget Review meeting, as well as the Budget Committee meeting later in May. That's all I have. Thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Hey, Chris, can you pull up my presentation on the rate forecast and the rate forecast slide?
Yes.
I just want to reiterate what a fortunate position that we're in, because we have been able to do the long range planning, do the master plans and really understand the infrastructure, and build up cash reserves for our construction fund. If you look out to 2034, we're looking at rates right about $70 a month, with no rate shocks. The city of Sandy currently, their rates is $22 a month. But they haven't been, it's been that way forever. They don't have any money in the bank
Their system is in bad shape.
and they have to build a brand new tree. Right now, they're looking at $69-ish. There's 64, 69, $70, about $70 by 2024. And that 2040 or 2034 number is north of $150. That's what happens when we don't do things the way that we do it. And Estacada and Malala are right behind. Wilsonville, same thing happened there about 15 years ago. It's the sad story of many deferred maintenance and lack of planning and anticipating what's coming down the pipe. And I think we do an excellent job at that. And I'm very proud of Wes for that. All right.
I would like to say I am very impressed with all of this that I see. The long range planning, I think, is just amazing and incredible. And it just, you guys have me on.
Well, thank you. That means coming from you. I probably most of the advisory committee doesn't know, but I served on the Clackamas River Water Budget Committee under the South. She was the CFO and she's been a mentor for me in public finance and is one of the, is just incredibly well regarded in our discipline across the state. So having her on the advisory committee is a huge bonus.
Okay. All right, we're gonna move on. We're now 3 minutes behind when we were ahead earlier. So. So we have a appointment of budget committee members. So, you are aware, we have, I'm the only one that's actually still on the budget committee because everybody else has served their 3-year term. And, are there any folks that are interested in serving on the budget committee that might be new to the budget committee that want to serve before we go to whether people who have been on the budget committee want to serve again? Don't all raise your hands at once.
I would do one.
Okay, so Carol, all right. Anybody online? Don't all volunteer at once. I see you shaking your head, Rita. Everybody else is. Don't make me voluntold you. Nope, nobody. Any interest?
Well,
Your name too.
well, no, I've been here.
Well, you're new, but
Oh.
you're new to me, so I was asking if you're interested. in
Well, I've been doing it ever since this committee was formed, so I'm willing to certainly step down if there is some interest.
Like you can see, there's overwhelming.
It kind of depends on who other, who else.
Yeah.
I will gladly participate, if there's space. So.
Oh, I think there's space.
I'm interested, but I'm struggling with time commitment, and I just wanted to make sure I understood what the time window would be.
You say May 16th.
Yeah, so it will be the advisory committee meeting on May 16th, and then the budget committee meeting likely on May 28th, although we don't have the specific date. And that budget committee meeting is in person. It's usually in the morning at the Public Services Building on the Red Soils campus, so where we are tonight. And it usually is about a 45-minute meeting based on past experience.
Otherwise, the commitment is, I would say, is it's very flexible
Yeah.
and fairly minimal.
Yeah.
You get mailed over materials,
Yeah.
so you
I
can
think I
go
did
through
2 meetings last year.
Yeah.
That was pretty much it.
Yep.
Did you hear that, Neil? It's about 2 meetings.
You're muted, Niels.
I'm sorry, and can you
That's okay.
say those dates again?
May 16th and possibly May 28th.
Right, so it'll be sometime the week of the 28th. Our educated guess is it will be on the 28th.
Yeah, I think I can make that work. If there is a need, I'd be happy to participate.
Okay, and how many do we actually need?
That's fine.
Okay,
And Roseanne is not here, so
Right.
she will
yeah,
follow
she
up.
can't do it. And William, do you want to do it again?
Sure.
Okay. Okay, so we have 5. All right. So, we don't have any multiple nominations, so I would like to get is there a motion, please, with a second to, appoint the 5 members who volunteered to, be on the budget committee?
So
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, second by Carol. All right, all those in favor of the motion, do we need to repeat who the people are?
Yes,
Yeah.
please.
Yeah, so let's just go ahead for the notes.
Chris,
Here's the people that volunteered are,
I have Carol, I have William, and I have Neil, and I think I missed the 4th.
Well, so I think what we have is Denise.
yeah, because I'm already on it.
Right.
William.
Yeah.
Michael and Carol. And then if somebody, and a willingness from Neil.
Yeah.
If somebody wants to bow out, I'll bow out. Okay, so, and then Michael's.
This is bad.
So then, so that would be, then instead of Michael, it'd be me.
Neil, yeah, okay, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion, just raise your hand. Even a yellow one will do. Okay,
Chris,
all those,
I was just gonna say there's 5 people in the room.
yes, so, and any opposed? And any abstentions? Okay, so motion carries. All right, so we're on to the next item, which is outfall groundbreaking and boring tunnel naming update.
The finale of the
Yeah,
evening.
everybody's been waiting for this.
Yes,
So
so
we know it's not the same name as the city street sweeper.
that's true.
I couldn't wait to find out, so I Googled it and found out.
All
I wanted to know.
So I'm gonna give you a brief update. So my name's Alexa Morris. I'm your utility relations coordinator. Started in January. I was excited to have the in-person meeting tonight too, to get to meet some of you in
I'm so
person.
sorry, I didn't introduce you. It seems like she's been here on a year. Right, yeah, it's amazing. Seamless.
So we're gonna kick off with the groundbreaking. We had a really great turnout from partners, staff, and commissioners. We had over 50 people in attendance, which is pretty cool for a groundbreaking, to be able to have that energy and excitement. We even had to get more shovels last minute. You can see we got 12 out there, so that's pretty neat. Greg mentioned we had some media coverage, and I just wanted to emphasize too, like, it was a big deal, media coverage. 3 out of the 4 major networks covered it. So that's KGW, that's Fox 12, and that's Coin.
Yeah.
And so that's just, it's nothing to miss on. Wanted to be sure to let you guys know that. And what's great about it too with this project is with the naming now happening, that's another opportunity for us to have media coverage on this project. And then we'll have another chance this summer. So that's 3 times in 6 months being able to talk about the outfall project, which is pretty great. Next slide. Just want to give a special thank you to Chair Greg for being our MC at the event, and Vice Chair Mayor McGriff for sharing words during the program.
They like this, the city liked us standing in the
Yeah.
pipe. We had one of the small pipe, and then we're standing in the big pipe.
Yes, our team at the plant did an incredible job putting together a mock-up of what the new pipe's gonna look like, so people could stand in it. So the picture there, you can see Mayor McGriff, they're standing in the pipe we currently have. And then the next one's just a little bit taller, so you have to check out the Clackamas County Facebook page to see the
Yeah,
comparison.
we couldn't
Couldn't touch
yeah,
it.
This one, we were like, Mike, you can see his hands right at the top of the pipe, and I could barely slip into the pipe. So,
All right, next slide. So this is the moment you've been waiting for. We received over 650 names from the public, which is really impressive. We got it boiled down to a top 30. And then we had all of our staff vote. And I think we were nearly at 90% feedback, right, from staff, which is pretty incredible.
Yeah.
And so just this week, we had names suggested to the Board of Commissioners. We suggested Chu Rocca, we suggested Chuck Boris, and we suggested Happy Drillmore. And tonight, Greg will announce the winner.
Dun, 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 dun.
Clack-a-mole.
Whack-a-mole.
Whack-a-mole is the winner, and this is a mock draw up. It's an AI version,
Next slide.
which you could,
Oh, I don't have a,
which you could
or
pass
I could pull
around.
it.
Oh,
So
my goodness.
I thought we had the.
I'll pull it up. We do. I'll pull it up.
And so we have just, Aaron helped with the AI version. It was super exciting. Everybody on staff got involved with this. This is the unofficial, enthusiastic round one of Clack-a-mole. Next step for us too is the name's actually gonna go on the side of the tunnel boring machine.
With the picture of the happy mole.
Well, and that's what we're working on now. So we're working with our folks to see how far are you willing to go with the imagery on the machine.
Oh, that's
So
hilarious.
this was just a really cool chance to
And which
engage.
person came up with this?
Actually, a few people, I want to say maybe, can't give you exact number, less than 15 people submitted in different,
A bunch.
yeah.
Oh, that's.
So now how do you determine who the winner is then?
Well,
Warrant shows. Oh, you mean like, who submitted the name? Well, we can't in this case.
They'll have to share the glory.
Okay, okay, so they all don't get it like
They get to share
a shout out or
joy.
something?
Yeah.
They get a shout out?
bragging rights.
Yes.
Right?
Right.
Oh, dear.
So we're super excited and just like, we're really thankful that this is a chance to engage the public with infrastructure. Like part of my job is telling people who we are, what we do and why we matter, but also making infrastructure cool. So this was a fun way to get folks engaged and get them talking. We had talked and heard from folks, they were talking about in their living room of what this means, what is an outfall, why does it matter? So this was an exciting project and I just want to thank Greg and Ron for letting us run with it.
Okay, David, what do you think about the name?
Rewrites on the tunnel boring.
David, what do you think about the name?
Which David are you talking to?
David Goldie.
I think it's fantastic. Just give me a hammer so I can, like a whack-a-mole game.
They like the ball.
Yeah.
I don't think we want anybody whacking the boring machine.
And, yeah, and Alexa makes a good point. This was a fun and kind of whimsical thing, but when I sent out the email to our staff, those are 650 people in the community that know a little bit more about who we are, what we do, and why we matter. And since I became the director of West, it's worked really hard to get us from literally out of sight, out of mind, out into the community so that we have the community and that we're reflecting the work that the community wants us to do. Because that's how we get support for our 5-year capital improvement plan and our rates and build trust with the board. And it pays dividends for people to know us because we're doing a good job. And so whether it's our partnership with Solve or, our River Hills Grant Program or all of the outreach work that we do, I think pays dividends, great dividends.
So what were some other names that were suggested? What was like the runner-up?
So the 5 that I read, the Chu Rocca was submitted by multiple people.
Right.
Chuck Boris was also submitted by multiple people. A Happy Drillmore. Any other names that are coming to mind?
Doo-doo.
Oh, Diggory.
Doo-doo. Those are just his favorite.
Commissioner Scholl, I am actually, I think I slightly improved on his submission. It was El Chopper, but I thought El Chapo, or no, El Chopper.
Chopper.
Yeah, wait, for El Chapo.
Mine was too long. So I submitted the boring machine that doesn't go to boring.
Oh, there you go. All right, thank you.
we had a top 30 and we're happy to send that out
Yeah,
to
yeah,
the
that's all right.
committee if you want to see what.
We're all rolling down, you know, we're all going like, oh, yeah, okay,
There were some good ones.
all
For
right.
sure.
It was competitive.
I bet, I definitely see that, so, anyway, so do we have any report outs by any of the members? I see none here in the room, any report outs online? All right, so for my very first meeting that I'm chairing, I'm getting you out early. Meeting is adjourned, thank you, everybody.